1, 2, 3, 4.
When you saw your mother's diamonds, did you recollect the pain? That she doesn't care, that you were a forgotten son. If I showed you that the oceans were just a drop of rain, would it lead you back to the day you lost the war? I don't mean to bring you down before tomorrow, but I need to leave you there before we've lost the sun. I don't mean to bring you down too hard tomorrow, but I need to take you there before we've lost our love. You share are carved in stones. They all need to know if the people out there are not alone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth radio show here on Inception Radio Network.com every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That's U.S. time. And I have guests typically on my show to talk about paranormal and parapolitical topics. And today I'm very happy to have as my guest Richard Sauder, who is an author and very well known for his research into underground and undersea bases. In recent years, he has also come across some other information, which is rather interesting as well, which I hope we have some time to talk about. And that involves a presence surrounding the Earth of an artificially intelligent machine-type entity, which seems to have as its purpose the destruction of life on this planet. Mr. Sauder has a great deal of introspection when it comes to the earth and the environment, and I think that, well, I'll let him speak for himself when it comes to that, but I think one can guess from his interest in undersea and underground bases that he has seen some of the changes that have been wrought on this planet by humans and some of the environmental catastrophes that could possibly befall humanity, and of course the bases play into that as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about this. But if you want to find out more about Richard Sauder, I definitely suggest that you go to keyholepublishing.com, and Keyhole Publishing is all one word, and that's exactly like what it sounds, keyholepublishing.com, and you can find Richard Sauder's work there, and those include Hidden in Plain Sight, Beyond the X-Files, with a foreword by Richard Dolan, and also Underground Bases and Tunnels, Kundalini Tales, and Underwater and Underground Bases. And also, Richard has a blog at eventhorizon.blogspot.com. That's eventhorizon.blogspot.com. And the blog is linked up on the show notes page if you're interested in, if you're there, or you can link directly to his blog. So if you want to find out more about Richard's work, I suggest that you go and you check out both of those sites. And right now, I'm going to welcome Richard on board. Hi, Richard. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you.
So let me ask you, Richard, how did you How did you first get involved in looking into the construction of underground and undersea bases?
Well, you know, I moved out to the Southwest in the late 1980s to pursue my graduate education, and when I arrived there, the Southwest United States, and when I arrived in the area, I heard people for the first time in my life seriously talking about alleged secret underground bases and secret underground tunnels operated and jointly maintained by secretive units of the United States military and alleged little gray aliens. I didn't know if those stories were true, but they were wildly fascinating. Well, after a few years, I had a break in my academic schedule, and I decided to do a little bit of archival research to see if I could find any evidence for these underground facilities. And to my pleasant surprise, I did find that there are a lot of underground bases, and I documented many of these. Many of them are known from the public record and are not really secret or clandestine in any way. So I wrote a brief article along those lines for UFO magazine in Los Angeles, California, published by Don and Vicki Eckert. And in the article I said, well, you know, I can neither prove nor disprove the existence of little gray aliens, whether below the ground or anywhere else. But what I can say is there certainly are underground bases, and some of them are impressively large and deep. And I left it at that. That was in November of 1992, 19 years ago. And at that point, I thought I had exhausted the topic. Of course, I hadn't. And less than 2 months later, I was awakened from a deep sleep in the weeks between Christmas and New Year's, the last week of 1992. I was awakened in the middle of the night, maybe at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was suddenly very wide awake mentally and very relaxed physically, as if my physical body were still asleep, but my mind was wide awake. And I suddenly heard a voice out of thin air speak to me right in my ear, as if in my inner ear. And the voice said, in a very calm, matter-of-fact tone, "The underground bases are real." Now, I immediately understood that I was hearing the voice of a real flesh and blood man, because it was the voice of an adult male speaking normally accented late 20th century American English. And I never had any doubt that I was hearing anything but the voice of a flesh and blood living man. And he went on to say for about 2 minutes or so that there are a lot of secret underground installations, that they are large in scope, that there's, there are big programs and projects taking place in them. There are agencies and corporations involved, lots of personnel, lots of technology, lots of money is lavished on them, and that if the people knew that this was going on, they would be amazed, shocked, surprised, astounded, etc. But that, in fact, the vast majority of the people have no clue that these things are happening. And so it's a classic case of out of sight, out of mind. Well, he talked like this for just, 2 or 3 minutes, and then stopped as abruptly as he had begun. And I was left lying there in the dark thinking to myself, oh boy, this goes well beyond what I had thought, but that if what he's saying is true, I should be able to go out and do systematic archival research and discover a paper trail, because what he was describing was so large in scope and great in extent that I know if that many bureaucracies in terms of government agencies, military agencies, corporate agencies, corporate organizations were involved, that they certainly generated a lot of paper. And I don't care how classified these programs would be or would have to be, due to the sheer volume of what he described and its extent and the number of personnel and everything else involved. There's no way that all of the paper could be vacuumed up classified and removed out of the public sphere. At least some of it would have to trickle through the cracks, fall through the cracks. And so I went out starting in early 1993 and started doing that research, combing through archives, through government data repositories, through technical and trade journals, through military publications, government documents. I read general interest magazines and books. I mean, you name it. I just went through tens and tens and tens of thousands of pages of all kinds of literature and discovered the paper trail that I suspected was there. And indeed it was. And I was soon hot on it. And I can tell you without any equivocation, there are many underground bases, including secret underground bases, and many thousands of people work in them. And also, as I went along, I was tipped off by a number of people that there are also undersea bases and undersea tunnels. And the people who tipped me off pretty well run the gamut, you know, from just so-called ordinary men and women in the street to ex-military personnel to people who've worked for alphabet soup agencies. And then I found documentation for the United States Navy plans to build massive undersea installations down in the bedrock in mid-ocean. Already in the mid-1960s, they were coming up with these plans. So I now feel very comfortable in saying that these facilities exist. There are many of them, and for the most part, aside from the ones that we've been able to identify on the public record, quite a lot of it is being kept secret from us.
Indeed, and I imagine that just by what you noted about the inability to hide every scrap of paperwork whenever they come across doing something of a secret nature like this, there's also the hole that one would find where such things would be expected to be seen, and that would be evidence in and of itself, I would imagine, as well. Where there is a lack of something, one can easily infer the existence of something going on there where there is no documentation, or where they make an attempt to clean the record, so to speak.
Yeah, and a practiced investigator or experienced researcher gets a feel for that when you work with a large volume of information, and when you have a lot of people tell you things, you sort of, it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Past a certain point, as you work deliberately with it over a period of years, you can pretty well fill in the blanks with a high degree of accuracy.
Indeed, and so obviously one of the most interesting questions to ask you, Richard, is who was this man who was speaking to you? Do you have any idea as to his identity?
Yeah, I've talked to just scores and scores of people over the intervening years. I couldn't tell you how many, but a lot. And people have come forward and given me information, sometimes quite surprising. Well, one of my informants was talking with me one day, and I was describing this incident. And out of nowhere, he asked me, was my voice the voice that you heard?
He asked you that.
Yeah, well, that's a hell of a question, you see.
Indeed, it is.
And to ask the question is almost to make a confession. Because, one of the things that I document in my book, Kundalini Tales, which is also available at the keyholepublishing.com website, but one of the things that I document in Kundalini Tales is that the technology does exist. The electronic technology exists to beam intelligible voices right into the human audio cortex. In other words, what I'm saying is that electronic technology exists and has for decades to beam an intelligible voice right into the human mind that would be detected. It will sound like a voice just talking in your ear. And this technology has been patented on the open record. And there are a number of patents like this. Essentially, pulsed microwaves are used. Certain frequencies of pulsed microwaves can be detected by the human mind because they are psychoactive. And I'm not a neurologist or electronic expert, but I know enough in layman's terms to tell you that the technology certainly exists. I reproduced that patent in the appendix of Kundalini Tales, and it's been around for a long time. I've been told quietly that the intelligence agencies and military agencies do use it in their clandestine units. It's not issued to every guy with a backpack and a rifle, but there are certain covert units that do make use of this technology for their own stealthy purposes. And my surmisal is that this gentleman, because of who he is and what he did when he worked on the inside, had access to some of this technology, and probably saw my article in that magazine. You know, a lot of interesting people read UFO magazines, and including a lot of people in military agencies and intelligence agencies, because these agencies have been involved with surveilling UFOs, recovering them, reverse engineering them, etc., at least since the Roswell period, a couple of years after World War II, and perhaps even before. So these people do read about and study UFOs, and they actually have a good deal of recovered UFO hardware that they physically work with in their secret facilities. Nonetheless, I'm pretty sure this guy would have had access to that technology, or would have been on close speaking terms with a colleague who did, and probably said, well, you know, this Richard Sauder guy he's got a piece of the puzzle. Why don't I prime the pump a little bit, give him a little more information, whisper it in his ear in the middle of the night to heighten the drama, and see where he'll go with it. Well, I certainly took the prompt and ran with it. I'm still running with it. We're talking about it right now. And I haven't stopped, you see, so it's been an almost 20-year-long effort. In that time, I've talked to Lord knows how many millions of people through my television and radio and internet interviews, and also through the many writings that I've published in book form, and interviews and articles in a variety of magazines and internet forums. So you see, that quiet message that was whispered into my ear in the middle of the night in complete obscurity the last week of 1992 has now gone worldwide, and it's been spoken and amplified greatly into the ears of, who knows, tens of millions more, maybe even a couple of 100 million more people. So that's the answer to your question.
Very interesting. Of course, for people who are not familiar with the kind of technology that Richard Sauder is talking about, I believe he's referring to what is called an amplification of the Frey effect, which was discovered, I believe, in the late 1940s, 1950s during radar research, where certain people were discovered to hear crackling and popping sounds whenever they were exposed to microwave and radar waves, and there was some work done on this for a period of time in the open literature, and then of course it disappeared from discussion. And usually what happens in cases like this is these projects go into the black, and what happens is they're developed in a very secret and covert manner, and this seems to be relatively well accepted within the parapolitical and paranormal fields, that there is a technology which can, in effect, beam voices directly into your head by taking advantage of the properties of microwaves and certain other frequencies and their interaction with the actual tissues of your brain. Would you say that's correct?
This is not speculation. It is not in the covert realm. It is out in the open literature. I mean, it is an open U.S. patent. So this is not in the realm of, it's not clandestine in any way. The technology can be accessed by anyone who researches the United States patent database, which I did and many others have, and I reproduced that patent physically in the appendix to my book, Kundalini Tales. So it is not classified in any way. It's out there. And in fact, the genesis of this technology goes back earlier than what you just described. It was actually detected during the World War II period by military radar technicians, certainly Americans, but probably Germans and British and others as well, that exactly what you described occurred. They heard all kinds of strange noises, clicks and pops and hisses and things in their heads, seemingly in their brains, when they were working around these electronic apparatuses, and it didn't take long to figure out that they were actually hearing the electromagnetic radiation that was being broadcast, and then it was only a question of modulating the frequencies that were being broadcast to carry an intelligible sound, i.e. a human voice, which was done. And it may have been clandestine in the 40s and 50s, but I'm telling you, nowadays the patent is out there in the open literature and has been for the last, over 30 years.
Well, I'm very happy that you clarified that point, Richard. Now, perhaps it would have been better for me to say that the notion that such technology exists is not widely spoken about by mainstream science community.
No, they ignore it, but they know it.
Yeah.
The ones who are they know it because these people, members of those professional guilds and scientific guilds, neuropsych people involved in, neurologists, psychiatrists, electronic engineers, and so forth. They certainly have had their experts help develop this technology, and so there are many people who know about it. But like much else in our society, we're like an incestuous family where everyone is, screwing everyone else, and no one says anything about it, and just puts up an appearance that everything is normal, all the while reaming each other up the rear end. And this is exactly what's going on in our society. In our society, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people with PhDs and engineering degrees, etc., involved in these programs. They know, they do these things to the American people and to people in other countries, and they say nothing. It's not conscionable.
Well,
it can't be defended. It cannot be defended.
Well, I definitely agree with you there, and I think everybody who's listening right now can at least accept that what you said in regards to that is absolutely correct, and this is the forum that we're in today.
We have all of this abuse going on under a cover of silence and secrecy. It's a close analogy to an incestuous family where terrible things go on, but people don't talk about it. And we have a society where awful, terrible things are going on. And for the most part, most people, most of the time, don't talk about it.
Indeed, and that's a better clarification of what I'm referring to whenever I say these things are clandestine. They're in the sense that they're not talked about, they're ignored, and for the most part, most people will not take the time to do the research to find out that this is in the open literature, as you say, and there are patents for technology that takes advantage of this particular thing, and when people are confronted with this type of notion, unfortunately, they're of the mindset that they want to accept the establishment scientific point of view, and oftentimes that is just parroting the military-industrial complex and whatever it is.
Many scientists have research contracts or outright are in the employ of the intelligence agencies, military intelligence agencies, and the other military agencies and outfits like the NSA and the CIA, and they lie. They knowingly lie. They willfully lie. They lie knowing that they're harming other people, and they do it for money. In other words, they are whores, letters behind their names, who spread the lobes of their brains and sell their souls. They sell themselves and their lives to the depths of their souls. It's unconscionable.
It is, and with the wars that we've been engaged in this country for the last 10 years and more.
No, last century.
Well, indeed, we've been engaged in hostile activities since this country was founded, and to one degree or another. There's no question about that.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that what we're being pushed towards now, I believe, is that the United States is eventually just going to be the military arm of a globalist type regime of some sort, and it's unfortunate.
I met a gentleman some years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I was on an airline, and the guy in the next seat beside me was an ex-diver for Her Majesty's Royal Navy. He had been in the British Navy as a diver. And we had an interesting conversation. And he told me that he had been in the Falklands War when Maggie Thatcher sent the British fleet sailing down to fight Argentina over the Falkland Islands, which Argentina calls the Malvinas. That was in like 1981, was it, or 82, something like that? And I think it was 81. And he was in that operation. And I asked him why Thatcher did that. And he said, well, she wasn't going to let those islands go under any circumstances. In fact, she was prepared, if necessary, to nuke Buenos Aires to hold on to the Falkland Islands. She would have engaged in nuclear warfare against Argentina to hold those islands. And I said, why? And he said, because there are vast petroleum deposits in the sub-Antarctic region on the southern South American continental shelf, which is where the Falkland Islands lie, that there are vast petroleum deposits down there, and this is known to the global petroleum industry. So far, they are not exploited, but when the other oil that is easier to get has been pretty well gotten and is running out, then they'll move in down there with deep water offshore oil rigs and begin to pump that oil. And so Thatcher was protecting that as a national matter of national security for Britain. And he went on to say that, and this gets around to the point you were just making, is that the military, in this case the British military, but he made the point that it's even more true of the American military, serves as a military mercenary force in the service of the multinational petroleum corporations.
And we definitely see that, very blatant these days with what has gone on in Iraq and Afghanistan and other areas around the country, or around the world.
In our faces.
Yeah, it is.
In our faces.
It is.
And anyone who doesn't see it is just willfully feigning ignorance, because it is transparently clear that's the case. And people who think, well, it has to do with protecting America against, crazy Arabs or insane Muslims, or that it has to do with preserving our freedoms or keeping them from coming over to the United States and invading. This is all nonsense. And people who fall for this propaganda make a decision to be willfully stupid, ignorant, blind, and dumb, because truth is frighteningly clear.
It is, for anybody that really wants to look at it. And unfortunately, as the name of my show implies, the truth stinks, quite frankly, these days. And that's why the name of my show is The Stench of Truth, because the truth it does stink. And a lot of people want to turn away from that and not really look into it.
Because here's the implication. Once you understand what the business of the United States really is, which is war. I mean, my lifetime, I'm 56 years old. My entire lifetime there's been war after war after war after war. One has scarcely ended before, within a matter of years, if it's even that long, another war is undertaken somewhere. There's another invasion. The United States military or CIA back another military coup somewhere. Or they bomb some country, or launch cruise missiles at some country, or they assassinate some foreign leader, On and on and on. It's just violence and war over and over and over. My entire life, war is the business of the United States of America. And once you understand that foul and disgusting truth, it's hard. It's hard to justify sending money to the IRS. It's hard to justify voting in the criminally rigged, fake, bogus elections. It's hard to justify even physically living in that evil, wicked place.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And what I try to do is expose the truth, and hopefully people will be willing to listen and to do their own research and to find out what is in fact going on, and won't be afraid to face up to it, because the only way you can overcome it is to actually face it and realize that it's a reality.
It's interesting that so many Americans claim to be Christians of one kind or another, and yet I believe it was Jesus who is reported to have said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And yet so many Christians don't want to know the truth. And when they're confronted with the truth, not only do they argue against it, but frequently angrily attack the bearer of the truth, because frequently Christians in the United States, even more than others, above all, do not want to know the truth and violently reject it. And we see instances of this again and again and again. So many Christian churches have a flag, a United States national government flag setting in the front of the church, right up front, frequently on the altar or near the altar, right next to the cross, to the Christian cross. And yet, wasn't it Jesus Christ who said no man can serve two masters? You can't do it. Because either you will love the first and despise the second, or love the second and despise the first. But you can't serve two masters. And yet so many Christian churches have the American flag right next to the Christian cross. So who do they serve?
It's a very good...
Who do they serve?
Yeah.
Because they're telling you right there they have two masters.
Yes.
The state and Jesus. And Jesus also said, "My kingdom is not of this world." And yet the Christian church has an earthly kingdom's flag right up there front. So what do Christians in the United States believe? What do they really believe? See, I'm asking this question. I'm confronting them with their own scriptures, which, by the way, they themselves do not preach because they reject the truth.
No,
and I just described tens of millions of Americans easily.
Yeah, and I think you're correct. There is a lot of the dual master idea, and you do see a lot, especially with so-called fundamentalist Christian faiths, which urge people to support the government and think that
even worse, to support the military.
Indeed,
even worse, to support the military, and they pray to God in support of these wars, even though their own scriptures point blank say, "Thou shalt not kill," and yet they send their children to kill at the same time. And many of these fundamentalists say that I've heard them lament the fact that people don't obey the Ten Commandments anymore. The United States is getting away from the Ten Commandments, obeying the Ten Commandments, one of which is, "Thou shalt not kill." And they send their children into the United States military to kill, as if that's a good thing. I'm telling you, these people are a freaking head case.
Yes, I can only agree with you there. Unfortunately, it's true, and that would be true for just about everybody. I'm sure has come across some form of that or another in the course of their life, and it's a reality, and it's something.
It only needs to be discussed because these people are so dangerous. Because they're sending their sons and daughters all around the planet to conduct America's wars. And the American military is just chock full of so-called, we'll say this in quotation marks, so-called alleged Christians. It's just full of them. And they go and they kill other people actually claiming to do it in the name of Jesus. Can you imagine how obscene that is? Now, I'm not a Christian. I stopped going to church, to Christian services, years ago because I found this Christian ideology to be so foul, so repugnant, so reprehensible. I'm not talking about Jesus, who I believe was an enlightened being and still is, a very highly spiritually enlightened being. I'm talking about Christians, whom I found to be so foul, so reprehensible, so repugnant by what they said and what they do, sending their children and themselves going to commit serial murder and actually claiming that it's a good and noble thing. It's disgusting.
Well, it's been a long history, Richard. The Catholic Church throughout, the Catholic Church throughout Europe, the Crusades, and many other atrocities committed over time. So,
it's been ongoing for a long time, and which makes it even worse.
Indeed it does. And I can but agree with you there. It is a very sad and long history.
And it wouldn't matter, except these people play such a large role in American domestic and foreign policy.
Well, it is important. It is important that we note that because as you just said, there is a very strong political force which comes out of the fundamentalist side of things, the so-called right wing, and I'll put that in quotation marks. The so-called fundamentalist Christian right, which promotes the idea of the military being strong and us going to war against the evil Muslims and various other people around the world in the name of a quote-unquote godly country and what have you that the United States supposedly represents, and it's all one big sham. And it's right that people realize that there is a very strong political force behind that movement, which serves to direct a lot of people's energies wrongly and in the wrong direction. And
absolutely. Under this umbrella, we have all of these clandestine black budget top secret operations, compartmentalized operations that are taking place, and they use this propagandized gullibility of such a large sector of the population to fly these programs under the radar of public notice and public perception, and siphoning literally trillions of dollars out of the economy to conduct these very stealthy, furtive programs that have been going on for decades, at least since the World War II era, and I'm guessing well before, perhaps going back to the time of the American Civil War and maybe even before then. But at least for over 60 years and perhaps for a century and a half or more. And just vast sums of money have been sucked out of the economy. And also, a lot of cutting-edge science fiction-like technology has been developed in great secrecy and is used, but it is not made available for the use of the masses or for the betterment of humanity and the planet, which it could be. And so we are harmed in multiple ways by having our prosperity, our economic prosperity, vastly diminished. We're actually being robbed, and I use that word advisedly. A vast crime is in progress, so there's that dimension of it, the economic and financial dimension of it. And then on the other side, we have the case where society, not only in the United States, but right around the world, is greatly harmed because technology that could do tremendous good in the world is kept off the market, out of the hands of most members of the human race, the better to subjugate us and keep us under tight social, political, military, and economic control to render us, in effect, slaves. The vast majority of the human population on this planet is enslaved, effectively enslaved.
Yes.
So we're suffering. We're suffering from this, and we've never known anything else, so we can't imagine the world being different than it is. We're accustomed to this. We have grown up in this global slave pen. It's like the character, the Morpheus character in the first Matrix movie, and I'm assuming many of the listeners saw that movie, or maybe most, where Morpheus, Neo has been unplugged from the Matrix, and boy, that was literally and figuratively an eye-opener for him. Boom, for the first time, he saw reality with naked eyes, and he was stunned. Well, then he was flushed by the Matrix, because the Matrix does not like humans that are wide awake and aware, and who actually see the Matrix with their open eyes and begin to understand, WTF, what in the world is going on here? Doesn't like that. So it flushes those kinds of people and tries to get rid of them right away, which it did to Neo. But once it detected that he was awake and it seen the game behind the game, so to speak, it unplugged him, and flushed him right away. Well, Morpheus and his crew come along with their vessel and fish Neo out of the drink before he drowns, revive him, and Morpheus then says, when he's, briefing Neo on what's going on, tells Neo, reality, Neo, is that you were born into bondage. You were born into slavery and had no clue. Didn't have clue number one that you were in a total prison, up, down, and sideways, from A to Z, from soup to nuts. Didn't have a clue. Thought you had a good job working in an office building, like up on the 30th floor. You had your little corporate cubicle. You had your apartment or your condo, and you thought that everything was cool and you were living large. In fact, the whole time you were 100% a slave, nothing but, nothing less, nothing more but a slave. And that's the point of the movie, and in fact, that's our situation. This is a slave planet. More and more people are beginning to understand that, are beginning to see the slavers, are beginning to see the slave overseers, to see the various whips and chains that are used, and torture instruments, to see the various control, social, political, economic, and military control mechanisms, also electronic control mechanisms. They're beginning to understand that they have a slave number. In the old, pardon me, in the old days, when you were born into slavery, you were branded physically with a hot iron to indicate you were someone's property. You were branded like a beef cow. Pardon me, I have a frog in my throat. And today, of course, no such thing happens. The slavery is far more complete than it was during the so-called days of slavery 150, 200 years ago. Now, you are given at least one slave number at birth, and it follows you literally from cradle to grave.
And there are many other numbers that you get over the course of time as well.
But by number, telephone numbers, banking numbers. There's a number if you have a driver's license. If you have insurance policies, there are numbers there. Your house has a number. If you have a computer, you have an internet address for your computer. Your computer has a unique identifying number. Of course, you're given a number, so-called Social Security number in the United States, or a tax number. You have in other countries similar numbers that are issued as a form of state identification. And this is just your slave number, which indicates that you are the property of the corporate government. You are their physical property. They own you.
Let me ask you something, Richard. Do you see that the the military industrial complex, like in the United States and by extension globally, do you see that they have moved a lot of their programs into the civilian side of things to avoid oversight, and that's where a lot of this black budget stuff is going?
Yeah. A lot of black budget things would no longer be in government agencies or military agencies per se in the United States and also in some other countries. They are, in fact, as you say, being carried out by corporate contractors, so that technically it's not being done by the government. There is now a corporate government. In effect, it's a quasi-fascist system in the United States. It's still a soft dictatorship domestically in the United States, but it's lurching ever more in the direction of a hard dictatorship. For one thing, there are more than 2 million people incarcerated in the United States. More than 1% of the adult male population in the United States is incarcerated in some kind of jail or prison. That's an astonishing statistic. And that's another thing that, for the most part, goes undiscussed. But when you have that large percentage of the adult male population locked up, I'm sorry, that's a police state. By definition, the United States is a police state. And
a lot of that is corporate controlled now. In fact, most of it...
A lot of the prisons are.
Yeah.
A lot of the prisons are corporate. And in fact, a lot has been made of prison slave labor in China. But you know what? There are a lot of prison industries in the United States with prisoners working for 5, 10, 20 cents an hour. Serving a 20, 30-year sentence, and you're working for 10 cents an hour. Tell me that's not prison slave labor.
Yeah, well, it's great for the bottom line of the corporations that run the joint, that's for sure.
Yeah, and when you go to shop in a store to buy some furniture or a computer desk set or some little knick-knack or something, increasingly that's built, could be produced by prison industries in the United States.
Indeed.
And people don't talk about this.
No, and that also is an exceptional piece of information that people should be speaking about more. And then there's the use of slave labor in this country, which largely goes untalked about and unmentioned, even though the United States likes to hold itself up as a shining example, a beacon for freedom in the world, and point to human rights abuses everywhere else, but they will refuse to look themselves in the mirror.
I grew up down south and lived many years in the south, and more so in the past, but still today, you do sometimes see chain gangs working on the side of the road or cleaning up trash or whatever, and you'll see one or more deputies standing around with a pump shotgun, and you see guys, shackled around the ankles, and they'll be shuffling around working. That is slave labor.
It is.
It is prison slave labor, and so I actually feel like vomiting when I see or read of people like Hillary Clinton and other people who are puppets for the United States government lecturing China on its prison slave labor, etc. When the same thing happens in the United States, the same thing happens in the United States.
Yeah, the entire prison complex system in this country is a very sordid affair indeed, and we could spend the entire show talking about that, I'm sure. Yeah, and
as a matter of fact, over the years, I can speak with some experience because I spent more than a year and a half of my life incarcerated in 12 different jails and prisons in 5 different states of the United States. In Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Georgia, and North Dakota. I have been, over the years, an anti-nuclear activist and have repeatedly staged nonviolent peace demonstrations on the launch lids of nuclear missile silos in the states of Arkansas, Missouri, and North Dakota, for which I was arrested on multiple occasions over a 30-year period, was jailed, taken to federal court, tried, criminal are convicted, and this happened to me again and again. So I know something about the jail and prison system in the United States because I've spent a fair amount of time in it myself. And it's real, it's there, it's not a pleasant reality. I've been in it myself. I'm telling you from experience, these are not pleasant institutions to be in, and ugly things happen there by design. The system is designed to be ugly, and it is. It is real ugly. Now, I did the things I did because it so happens that the United States has, as we know, destroyed already 2 cities with nuclear weapons. In the closing weeks of World War II, the United States dropped nuclear bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. Killed one hell of a lot of people. And since then, the United States has gone around wagging its finger at other countries saying, no, 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 you dare not have nuclear weapons, because if you get nuclear weapons, you might use them. You might destroy some city somewhere, maybe even one of ours, and you can't do that. You see the double standard. Only the United States can destroy other cities with nuclear weapons, but no one else.
Oh, yeah.
And having done it twice, and having thousands of nuclear weapons on constant alert for launch, the United States then wags its finger at North Korea, at Iran, at Pakistan. No, 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 you dare not do these things. Only we may do it. And why? Why? Because we're America.
Yeah, and that should be answer enough, right?
Yes, because we are us. Mm-hmm. We are us, and we are self-evident, better than everyone else, and we alone may rule the world. Again, it's tautological. Why are we uniquely destined to rule the world? Well, because that's the way it is. We're America, and America is just the most perfect, pure, and noble place that there ever was. And if we happen to kill you, you may be assured that we did it for the best reasons. And if we slaughter your child in a helicopter gunship attack, well, thank you, Jesus. It'll go to heaven.
Yeah, it's the most cynical response someone can give, and unfortunately, it's also true. And
how many millions have been killed by American military personnel? Millions.
Yeah,
and people say, well, what if the Nazis had World War I, World War II? Think of the millions of people they would have killed. Well, you know what? The United States won World War II, and look at the millions of people that it has killed since World War II. Millions. So when people say, well, if the Nazis had won, just think of the millions of people they would have killed. Well, they lost. And you know what? Instead, the United States has killed millions of people. Not under swastika, but under the stars and bars.
That's very true. That's very true, and it's a sad reality. Let me steer us back here just for a minute to the underground bases, so we can close this out. I wanted to get your comments on a couple of things. First of all, the bases themselves. Do you see them now? Whether or not that they were originally constructed as such, do you see them now as mostly being like a contingency plan for the elite in the event of some catastrophic thing happening on the surface of the planet?
Yes, well, you have to. Yes, in some cases, but you have to understand there are many underground and underwater facilities. Some are publicly known, many are not. They can be vast. I mean, just huge, like towns, literal towns underground, able to accommodate not just hundreds, but 1,000 or 2,000 people or more, and sprawl for miles, hundreds or even thousands of feet underground. So you have to understand that at the outset, and then you have to understand that they are multi-purpose. One facility may have more than one function or more than one use, and more than 2 or 3. They also can be multi-agency. Not all of them are military. Not all of them are government. Some of them are corporate, and it's my understanding that some of them are built, maintained, operated by agencies and organizations that are really not publicly known. They're very shadowy, but very powerful. Very powerful, very high-tech, very powerful, very secretive, very well-staffed and maintained, but not publicly known in terms of identifiable organizational names. And they would interface with the military, interface with government agencies, interface with corporate agencies, interface with religious organizations of various kinds. But they would draw on all of that, but would not be any of those. So what we're dealing with is a complex reality. But yes, in some cases, some of them are designed for use of the so-called ruling elite in the event of natural catastrophes or nuclear war, sudden climate change, pole shift, you name it, asteroid strikes, comet strikes, things of that nature, solar flares, you know, picture whatever sci-fi-like scenario that you like. But yes, certainly some of them absolutely have been built as contingency for those types of things happening. And some of them actually are kind of like arcs with Star Trek-like technology when you get right down to it for jump-starting technical civilization again, industrial civilization again, without having to have a 2,000 or 1,000 year redevelopment of a technological or technical base. All the machinery and everything else is stored down there so that when this dust settles, and there are multiple examples of this, multiple facilities like this, they can restart a technical civilization without having to go all the way back to the time of ancient Rome or the Middle Ages in terms of the technological base, and then restart. So all of there would be archives with all of the mathematics and engineering down there, the feedstock, for making things, rubber, steel, aluminum, glass, all of that is stockpiled underground, and then schematics and equipment, manufacturing equipment, including foundry equipment for smelting metals and shaping metals and making plastic and forming plastic molds to form plastic and to create glass. I mean, I was told, for example, the wherewithal is there to make, for example, a microwave toaster oven from scratch. Okay? From scratch. It's not that the parts are there to bolt together, but to make the whole thing, to make the bolts, to make the screws, to make the electronic components in it, the glass panel in the door, the hinges, everything from absolute scratch, from raw materials, starting from that level. A toaster oven or an automobile, for example, and anything, virtually. And that's underground. It's like science fiction, but these vast facilities are down there, and that's one example of the type of facility that is down there. And of course, there are many stories, many anecdotal accounts of people seeing aliens underground. Some of the aliens are very human-looking. Some of them are very alien. Some of them are very aliens. Some of them are very human-looking aliens or extraterrestrials, but they apparently are here and working with clandestine elements of the United States government and also corporate agencies and military agencies, underground and also undersea.
So it's your take that there is an interaction going on between the people who are running these bases and these secret programs and aliens of some kind.
At the highest levels, yes, or I guess you would say the lowest levels. At the lowest level, yes.
Yes, I guess that would be a better way of putting it.
It would be hundreds of thousands of feet underground. Yes, they do liaise, they do interface to a degree. It wouldn't be every person that works in every underground base, but certainly some people in some of the underground and underwater facilities would be interfacing with one or more of these off-planet groups. Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to be coming up on a break here in a moment. I'm talking with Richard Sauder. You can find him at Event Horizon Chronicle .blogspot.com, and you can also find him at keyholepublishing.com. You're listening to the Stench of Truth here on Inception Radio Network every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. We're going to take a short break, and I'll be right back talking to Richard Sauder, so stay with us.
guys, Jamie Havocan here for Inception Radio Network, letting you know we are looking for advertisers. If you have a product you would like to advertise on Inception Radio Network, on air or on the website or both, let us know. Send us an email, inceptionradionetwork@gmail.com. That's inceptionradionetwork@gmail.com. We offer banner ads, audio ads, and so much more. Contact us. Jamie at inceptionradionetwork@gmail.com.
Hi, Bob Tarmac for Inception Radio Network. I'd like to introduce you to a show that I listen to every week. It's Pang Radio with MJ. MJ has hosts every single week, new hosts every single week, and they talk about everything. They talk about, of course, UFOs, paranormal, but sometimes they just talk about what's in the news. It's a great show, and it airs on Sundays, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Pang your head. I'll see you there.
Hey guys, Jamie Havocan here for UFO Mag. Do you want to receive the best writing there is in ufology, the best writers, editors, and flat out the best magazine that ufology can offer? If so, I highly recommend UFO Magazine. You can check it out at ufomag.com. And if you mention that you heard this on radio, you can get 6 issues for $19.95. Check it out, ufomag.com. Don't miss out. And keep up to date on the hottest topics in ufology. For UFO Mag, this is Jamie Havocan. Hello folks, Jamie Havocan here. Remember to tune in to Tonight with Jerry Pippin. Every Monday night, we debut a new episode of the Jerry Pippin program, specially packaged for Inception Radio Network. And we call this show Tonight with Jerry Pippin. Every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, InceptionRadioNetwork.com. I'll see you there.
Hi, Bob Tarmac for Inception Radio Network. You know, I have a personal favorite show that I listen to every week, and I'd like to introduce you to it. It's Project White Paper. It airs every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's with Michael Rambacher and Chase Klosky. They bring on new guests every single week, and they go live on location at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. What is it again? It's Project White Paper, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you there.
Where will you find a professional association of paranormal researchers? Paranexus.org. Where can you get research training, share data, and network with other researchers? Paranexus.org. Where will you find a set of international standards for paranormal research groups? Paranexus.org. Paranexus is a global professional association of progressive paranormal investigators, parapsychologists, cryptozoologists, ufologists, and psychically gifted individuals focused on understanding the human condition through the scientific study of paranormal and psychical phenomena. Paranexus.org. A place to learn, a place to share, a place to network, a place to come together. Join us now at Paranexus.org.
Hey guys, Jamie Havocan here with a great deal for you. Don't throw away that old FM radio. Here's a great new gadget that will enable you and your FM radio to receive thousands of stations. This audio transmitter is the size of a thumb drive, and it plugs into any USB port on your computer. Now, whatever you want to stream, Netflix, iTunes, TalkStream Live, any internet radio station, you can now hear beautifully on any FM radio. Here's the deal. You can get the FM audio transmitter for $25. Its current value is $38. Shipping is included. $25, everything's done. You can buy the FM audio transmitter right now by clicking on the deal at TalkStreamLive.com.
We have class warfare. It's not a class warfare against the rich guy who lives up on the hill in your fucking town against you. No, because that rich guy who lives up on the fucking hill in your town is the same as you in the eyes of the people who are really running the fucking show.
What happened to us, my beautiful? Since the day that you went, you is not what I think is good for this land. I'll never hear anymore. There's only peace and nevermore. Look around you, there's no one left to come.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Stench of Truth radio here on Inception Radio Network. Every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Inception Radio Network. This week I have as my guest Richard Sauder, and we've been discussing the military-industrial complex and the prison industry in the United States. We've also been talking about the underground and undersea bases, and before we left the break, Richard had just indicated that he has come across information that shows that certain alien races have been interacting and interfacing with people at some level in underground bases. And if there are any questions regarding that, you can post them up in the chat room at the Inception Radio Network chat, and I'll try to get to them during the course of our talk in this second half of the show. But one of the main reasons I wanted to get Richard on the show was to talk about a recent experience that he had in coming across a artificially intelligent machine type entity, which is inimical to life on this planet. And I will let Richard explain how he came across this this entity and how he came to a conclusion about what this represents and what it could possibly mean for us. But before I have him do that, I wanted to put this into a little bit of context so that people people can see that this is not something that just Richard has come up with in his own research and in his own life, but other people have hit upon this same sort of thing throughout the years. And one of the most prominent people was Philip K. Dick, who wrote a book called VALIS, V-A-L-I-S, and this was called, that was an acronym for a Vast Active Living Intelligence System, which he believed was a satellite that orbited the Earth, which interfaced with humanity in a mind control type fashion to influence people into keeping us basically in slavery, which we have been talking about here, and how we're born into a sort of matrix-like system nowadays where people are born into slavery, and how we've evolved, that slavery has evolved horribly and terribly to the point where people don't even realize that we are in slavery. And of course that's the best kind of slaves that you can have, is the ones that don't even realize that they are slaves. But there are some other examples that we have seen throughout time as well. In the story One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Chief Brompton, who was the Indian in the movie and in the book, he was silent, but when it was revealed some of the information surrounding him, he believed in something called the Combine, which was sort of amalgamation of technology and corporate and state control systems that were put into place to keep people under the thumb of the state. And it sort of smacks of this sort of machine-like intelligence as well, which has an evil purpose of control and keeping people suppressed and preventing people from accessing their freedom, their sovereignty, and this sort of thing. So now, with those two things in mind, just for you to see that this is something that has been a sort of meme that's been out there before. So Richard has tagged on to this, and I'll let him tell you the story of how he came about this. So Richard, if you will take it away.
Yes, I stumbled across this. Of course, I caught many glimmerings and foreshadowings of the working of this in my life and in my research. over the years. But I saw it for the first time inwardly in a more direct fashion, I suppose you could say, with inner eyes. I came to South America on a vision quest, and to be sure, I perceive my entire life as being a vision quest. But I came here on a vision quest and worked with, over a period of a few months now, with an indigenous shaman over in the Amazon, and also a Western shaman here in Ecuador. And as part of that, took part in ayahuasca ceremonies for about a dozen times altogether. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, ayahuasca is a beverage, a very bitter, really bad-tasting beverage. It's hard to drink and hold down without spewing back up because it's so alkaline. But it's a beverage that's made from the ayahuasca vine, which is a vine that climbs up in the trees and in the jungle, and on the one hand, and also from the leaves of the chalipanga bush. And the twigs from the vine, and sections of the vine, and also the leaves are boiled together in a pot until you get a thick, dark, really bad, bitter-tasting residue that you drink, and that's the so-called ayahuasca beverage or drink. And these plants are hyperconscious. They actually have a type of superconscious awareness. They have an awareness that vastly dwarfs that of the average human being on Earth. They plug into cosmic realities as well as to earthly terrestrial realities. They, for whatever reason, have an intimate awareness of human psychology, of our emotions, of our minds, of our spirits, of our souls, of our society, of what's going on this planet in the past, in the present, the future, what's happening on other planets around the galaxy, what other beings are doing. And when you drink the ayahuasca beverage, the consciousness in these plants, which is taken over into the beverage when you boil it, plugs in to the human mind rather like a modem from a personal computer plugs into the internet, turning your individual personal computer into a portal that can access vast realms of data and information and communicate literally with, if you desire and are able to arrange it, with millions, even hundreds of millions of other computers. In analogous fashion, the ayahuasca kind of plugs into your brain modem-like, and permits your consciousness to access much wider and deeper realms of knowing, and in fact, as wide and deep as you care to or are able to go and to perceive and to stand. In my experience, there's literally no limit, and you can indeed dive deep in the ocean of consciousness, because that is the realm where ayahuasca plays. And if you want to enter its world of cosmic consciousness, of vastly expanded awareness, you can. I would say the price of admission is steep, starting with the taste of the ayahuasca brew, which is, I'll put it this way, it is hard to take. But on a physical level, it is hard to take. But if you can hold it down and let it do what it does and open yourself to it, you can gain remarkable insight. I will say the sky is the limit. And at the same time, in terms of taking it, the ego, our individual human ego, does not like change, and it's scared of consciousness and awareness that it can't control. The ego is all about control and keeping things under control. And when it perceives it is losing control, it gets very nervous and may do things like make you vomit, may make you break out in a panic attack. It might actually make you lose consciousness to avoid facing realities, information, and data
that are threatening, directly threatening to the ego and its sense of control. And so you have that going on as well, in addition to the physical, just sheer physical objectionableness of the taste of the drink, of the beverage. But that's, in a nutshell, a little something about ayahuasca. Now, as I drank ayahuasca a few times, ayahuasca showed me something. I asked it to show me what it felt was important for me to know. And what it showed me was plenty sobering. It showed me that there is a kind of artificial intelligence. And when I say that, I mean it is vast. It is not a natural and souled type of awareness in the sense that a human being is, or presumably a whale is, or a dolphin and so forth, or other evolved conscious biological beings. This thing distinctly smacked of being artificial, of being created. I don't know by whom or by what, but it was vast. It has this planet under its thumb and its thrall, inside and out. And by that I mean I saw it working in the spiritual realm and the lower astral levels, which are not our everyday three-dimensional physical reality, but are the next level, would be the next level of reality up. It's close to this physical realm, but a little bit removed from it. And if you want to know what the astral realm is and you don't know, there are just reams of information about that on the internet, and in any good lending library or research library, you could find information about the astral world or astral realm. It's very well discussed in mystical and spiritual literature by many different authors, thinkers, and experiencers, mystics, etc. And what I saw is that this vast machine is not a machine in the sense that a lawnmower is, or a railroad locomotive, or a steam shovel at a strip mine, for example. These are very crude, primitive examples of what I'm talking about. This machine is many orders of magnitude more sophisticated than these machines that I just described. It understands human psychology, the human emotional nature, human spirituality, or in many cases, the pronounced lack thereof. It understands what pushes people's buttons for good and for bad, what motivates people to do good things and bad things. It understands the functioning of human society, government, military institutions, religious organizations very well, because it has played in interfacing with the consciousness, or evidently unconsciousness, of myriad human beings to create these agencies, institutions, and organizations, and to run them to benefit the machine's agenda, which is the subjugation of the human race at the least. And as I began to suspect, the more I saw, not just the subjugation and enslavement of the human race, but the full spectrum dominance of planet Earth in every little particular, including, I suspect, to destruction of the biosphere, destruction of biological life on this planet through a variety of means. And certainly, if you look at the trajectory of history over the last, say, 10,000 years, you can see there's a process of desertification across this planet. 10,000 years ago, there was not a Sahara Desert. 10,000 years ago, there was not a desert in the southwestern quadrant of North America, etc. So there are vast areas of the planet that are deserts now and largely devoid of biological life that 10,000 years ago were temperate or tropical climate regions with plentiful animal life and vegetation. Not today. So you've had that change. And in our day, of course, we have melting down nuclear reactors that are just spewing toxic radioactive contamination into the sea and air nonstop for months now, and no one knows how to fix that. In fact, no one has the capability to fix that. And there's no guarantee that there won't be yet more melting down nuclear reactors in coming months and years. In fact, it could happen any day, literally. In Japan, in the United States, in Russia, in China, in France, you name it. There are many countries with nuclear reactors, nuclear power reactors. And so far, in the last quarter century, we had a nuclear power reactor blow up. Actually, it was a dirty nuclear explosion, and that was at Chernobyl in the Ukraine, in the former Soviet Union. And that reactor was never fixed. It was just covered over with a crumbling concrete sarcophagus, which could actually just collapse most any day and send a cloud of very dangerous radioactivity not only over the Ukraine, but wherever the wind blows it. So the Chernobyl situation is not over at all. It's just as dangerous as it ever was. And now we have these 3 melted down nuclear reactors in Japan, and others could happen at any time. Well, this is the reality of the nuclear age. I actually said nuclear rage, but you know, that's an apropos Freudian slip. The nuclear industry, in fact, is attacking the Earth and attacking the human race. Nuclear power reactors and nuclear missiles are not compatible with long-term human habitation of planet Earth. They are not compatible with a healthy biosphere on planet Earth. And in fact, the more nuclear radiation that is put into the environment, the more hazardous it is for biological life right across the spectrum. So we can see that the nuclear industry, which has total backing of major multinational corporations and major governments, is inimical. It is highly dangerous to the human race's well-being, and yet we see this huge push, this huge multi-trillion-dollar push for nuclear weapons, for nuclear energy. And this is one of the workings of the machine, to introduce technologies and promote them and force them to be built planet-wide that place the human race in mortal jeopardy of extinction-level events.
Do you see the corporate and the governmental elites interfacing with this machine entity?
I think so. Mm-hmm. In fact, we're into the realm of black magic here and secret societies to an extent. But absolutely, they would be aware of this, and the ones at the highest levels are again, is it more appropriate to say, the ones at the very lowest levels. Yes, the movers and shakers, the real powerful ones behind the scenes, would know, and absolutely have given themselves over voluntarily to it, which raises the question as to whether everyone that we see is a human being in the natural sense.
I see. So, do you think that these people that are interfacing with this entity, do you believe that they know what the agenda is and they just don't care? That's
right. That's right. We have a cadre of psychopaths. Mm-hmm. When we talk about who are really puppets. The President of the United States is a puppet. Mm-hmm. The Queen of England is a puppet. The Roman Catholic Pope is a puppet. The Prime Minister President of France is a puppet. The Prime Minister of China is a puppet. The Chairman of the Military Joint Chiefs of Staff in the United States is a puppet. On and on. The Treasury, the Secretary of the Department of Treasury of the United States government, Timothy Geithner, is a puppet. On and on. And above them, or again, should we say, far, far below them, headed down towards the upper levels of hell, and I'm not joking. we find those who hold themselves behind the scenes, who would rarely, if ever, have their name appear in a magazine or a newspaper or on a television broadcast or on an internet website. Neither their face, their picture, their name, where they live, what they do, who they associate with. The most powerful movers and shakers behind this system that has the planet in its grip, for the most part, spend their lives in the shadows. They're shadowy characters, and they are foul, objectionable, dangerous beings on the loose.
And that would exactly fit in with my my particular take on this as well. Even if they were not privy to the entire scenario that is planned to be played out, they would certainly see the vector, which way it's going, and they have to be held accountable for that. If not,
some of them know, if not every last aspect of it, quite a lot, at least in broad form. And they give themselves over to it. What you have to understand is there are individuals who are almost pure evil and who embrace total darkness and who actually get off on killing large numbers of people. They get off on destroying the environment, on laying waste forests. They get off when they see large numbers of animals dying, when they see poisons, toxic poisons being spread in the environment. They like it. They do these things with relish. It pleases them. They are, I repeat, foul, objectionable, reprehensible, dangerous beings on the loose, and they are here on this planet, and they are a threat not only to the human race, but to the safety of the biosphere and continued viability of biological life on this planet. These are dangerous beings, and they serve deep darkness and wickedness.
And the horrible irony of it is the fact that these same people went up dead at the end of the day, and they continue to go ahead and do the things that they do in glee, knowing that the end result is going to be a desolate wasteland that they're not going to be able to live on any better than anybody else.
Oh, but they've been, my understanding is that they have been promised certain rewards by still darker beings, that in exchange for their service, that there will be a certain payoff for them, even beyond physical death. But you're right. They don't care at all about the planet or anyone or anything except their personal interest, their narrow personal interest, which is naked power, and they don't care. They don't care how many people they kill. They don't care if it leads to outright destruction of the planet, even to blow it up. They don't care. I repeat, these are darkly wicked individuals, and they threaten the viability of this planet.
And do you say that this also goes into the idea of secret societies and dark occultic forces and black magic and interfacing with these dark entities, as you call them, which I'm sure people could refer to them as demons or whatever kind of word you want to use to describe these types of things. But the fact of the matter is that on a certain level, the worst purveyors of this sort of thing are the ones that think that they're going to get something out of this, and even after they're dead, so to speak.
Oh, they will get something out of it. I strongly suspect that what they get out of it, however, will not be exactly what they were promised by their dark overlords, because you see, their dark overlords are even darker than they are. So I believe at the end of the day they will discover that their reward may be rather different than what they envisioned, because if they lie, and they do, imagine how much more so their dark overlords lie.
And that's kind of what I was getting to there, yeah.
And even to them. You know, it reminds me of a conversation I had once with a man I worked for many years as as a residential window cleaner. One of the men I worked for spent his career in the military, working for a military intelligence agency. And I talked with him many times over the years, and including about the fact that the CIA had tried to recruit him. And he told me repeatedly about this, and also the fact that while maybe a lot of people would be flattered to think that, oh, the CIA is trying to recruit me to be a secret agent, with Bond glitter dust in their eyes.
Right.
He had no such illusions, because as he told me more than once, Richard, why would I want to work for the CIA? The CIA even kills their own. So this is the way the dark overlords work. They have you do their dirty work, their foul bidding, and when it's over, guess what? They're perfectly capable of turning right around and destroying you just the way you destroyed others. And their response effectively would be, what do you expect? You're just getting what you dished out to other people, and you've served our purposes, you've served us well, thank you, now we're going to destroy you.
Yeah,
Bye.
it's the ultimate Faustian bargain. In that sense, yes.
Yeah, what is it that they say? You go to bed with dogs, you wake up with fleas.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Sleep with dogs, you wake up with fleas.
That's true. That's true. And, in my own research and what I've looked at, I think that one thing that some skeptics have a problem with interfacing with the idea of, extraterrestrials on one level, but also with the idea of demonic forces on another. But really the reality is, I think, that if you have a problem with accepting the idea of these things being real, it really doesn't matter from your point of view, because the people that are interfacing with these entities and having something to do with them, they believe it's real, and that's really the only thing that matters, because they
set in motion programs to make it real.
Exactly. And
the other thing is that I saw, the other thing that ayahuasca showed me is, not only does this take place, it showed me, for example, that there are certain clandestine units in the American Army who are interfacing with this machine, and nasty units. It showed me one unit that is a search and destroy. These people are cold-blooded killers, and they go out as a unit. These are serial murderers, and the military agencies give people psychological profile tests in basic training. And they find the people with the profiles that are the cold-blooded killers, the psychopathic serial killer profile and mass murder profile. And they take them aside and they use them. And there are units of these people, and they will just as soon take a Bowie knife and cut your guts out as shake your hand. I wouldn't disturb them in the slightest, because they are just that cold. And the United States Army has units like this, and this is what ayahuasca showed me, that these are just, and I say it again, foul, reprehensible, dangerous beings on the loose, and they're wearing American military uniforms. It even showed me the name of one of the little officers, little Banty Rooster officer, and he's a foul man. Unfortunately, walking the face of this earth. But what it showed me is the United States military interfaces with this machine and does its bidding. Big corporations interface with this machine and do its bidding. Other government agencies, you have the religious agencies and organizations, whether it's the Roman Catholic Church, and how many millions did the Catholics kill? They don't even know how many millions they killed. The Catholics killed more millions than the Nazis did.
Over the centuries,
and they don't even know, and yet they presume to tell other people about God and Jesus and the love and heaven when their hands are drenched in blood and have been for centuries. It's obnoxious. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And yet we find the machine plugs into all of this. And its agenda is murder, destruction, mayhem, chaos, enslavement, control, annihilation, extermination. It's relentless. It's been at this for centuries, maybe for thousands of years. And it prompts people to invent things like nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles, napalm. It prompts people to invent things like cruise missiles. It prompts people to invent things like machine guns, nerve gas. It prompts people to build nuclear power reactors with known faulty safety designs right on the seashore in a known region where there's a history of tsunamis, in a region where there's a known history of major earthquakes, knowing that sooner or later it'll all just be cracked to pieces and the nuclear reactors will go critical and spew radioactivity all over the place. They do this knowingly, knowing that this will happen, and still they do it. And this is the working of the machine. It does not have a soul. It is vastly intelligent and calculating. And it is also working at an astral level. Remember, nuts and bolts electronics. As we discussed outside of this program, nuts and bolts electronic technology can put voices right into the human mind. So what we're talking about here is an artificial machine or intelligence that works at a mental or low spiritual realm, if you will, that humans tap into. And what ayahuasca showed me was I saw something that resembled a dairy milking parlor. If you've ever been at a dairy farm, the farmer brings in the milk cows twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, to be milked. And they go into stalls in long rows in the milking parlor, and they have suction devices attached to their udders, to the teats, and it milks them. This gentle sucking action, it draws the milk out of their udders. And it's siphoned off then through tubes and through pipes and into big vats where it's collected, and then trucks come and take the raw milk away to dairies to be made into cheese and yogurt and sour milk and butter and so forth. And what I saw was people coming in and sitting on something like stools or chairs in long rows in low sheds. The sheds had a roof, and just under the ceiling of this low roof was a network of pipes. And coming down from the network of pipes were tubes, and the tube attached to the top of every person's head and sucked part of their vital life energy out in this astral level and into the tube, and it was taken into the network of piping that was hooked up into the rafters just below the ceiling, and then that energy was taken off somewhere else, collected somewhere else. I didn't see the processing plant or where it went. I only saw what was being done. So the people came in and they sat down. It was like looking at junkies in an opium den because they got off on it. It was pleasurable. It was like, really almost orgasmic in a sense, to be milked by the machine. To be milked by the machine. And if you look at our society, you can see people being milked in so many ways, going to discotheques, coming out of the grocery store with a six-pack of beer or the case of beer and going home and just getting plastered, or sitting around just doing methamphetamine. And there are millions of people who do methamphetamine or snorting cocaine or shooting up with heroin. And so you can see that millions and millions and millions of people do plug in to these substances. The corporate agencies provide, the corporate, the beer companies. I mean, advertising for beer is everywhere.
That's true. Pharmaceuticals, et cetera. Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals, or buying a new car. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
All the time on television, new cars being advertised.
Yeah.
A lot of the time by good-looking women, and both women and men go and buy new cars, and they buy right into it. And you know, when you're spending thousands of dollars of your money for these things, that represents your life energy.
Mm-hmm.
Money is a form of energy exchange.
Yeah.
So you're giving over your life energy to this corporate machine. It's seducing you. Literally, the beautiful woman, stroking the fender of the car with her hands and pretty hair and all of that, and people fall for that by the millions. It works, and they go out and buy these cars, and oftentimes go into tremendous debt to get these new cars, and so these are just some examples of the way that people plug into the machine. And of course, I saw this, and they were at the time I was seeing it, I thought, number one, I viewed it, but I didn't get invested in it because I was aware that such is the allure of the machine. Anyone is subject to being sucked into it.
So let me ask you this, Richard. Did you come across anything that indicated that there was an active resistance against this?
Not within what ayahuasca was showing me. What ayahuasca was showing me was how this thing extensively plugs into human society at all levels, from the individual level up to the organizational and institutional level, and in between. How these structures that humans create do its bidding, and how individual humans do its bidding, or give their life energy over to it and like it. They do it and they like it. They like to have this machine suck them off, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making this. The machine sucks them off to the top of the head. Their subtle life energy, and they like it. I repeat, it had a real opium den feel to it. And so at that level, no, there's not resistance. Rather, there's a giving over. People giving themselves over at a fundamental life level. And you look around you, you can see people doing it all over the place. Now, the resistance I see is people like you and people like me who are talking about this. That's the resistance. The resistance is expansion of consciousness. That's the resistance. It's the only possible way to thwart this machine is via an upwising, UPWISING, an upwising of consciousness, raising our game, not just having street smarts, but having, I guess you would call, spiritual smarts. Now, I'm not talking about being, holier than thou or being some kind of Bible thumper, because I interpret spirituality as understanding the fundamental nature of the universe and harmonizing with the goodness of the creative process in the cosmos. To me, that's fundamental Christianity, harmonizing at a fundamental life level with the agenda of the creative impulse that underlies and that animates the cosmos, the galaxy, this planet, the solar system, the whole universe. So my understanding, so to speak, of spirituality would be very different from, say, fundamentalist Christians, most of them.
So you see the resistance coming down to individuals, basically. Then
has to be. Has to be, because the battlefield is in every individual heart, soul, and mind. That is, people ask, well, where's the front in this fight, in this war? It's in your heart, it's in your soul, it's in your mind. That's where it is. And if you don't recognize that, if you're not wising up, then you falling prey to the machine, and you're carrying out its agenda. And I have to say, a lot of people wittingly do the bidding of the machine, but there are also people who unwittingly do the bidding of the machine, unknowingly. Of course, at some level, you really do know. But people make a decision to tell themselves, I don't know. I'm ignorant. I don't know. I'm not responsible. I don't know. But you know what? At a basic level, yeah, you really do know. You know.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people may not realize what exactly is wrong, but they know that something is wrong, and they decide to go along with it rather than investigating where that wrongness is and making a conscious choice to try to avoid it. So in that sense...
It's the process.
Yeah.
It's the process, and a lot of people are in denial, and I would say it's willful denial. It gets down to this. You know as much as you want to know. You dive as deep into consciousness as you want to go. And that's true of all of us.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are in willful denial. They have made a conscious decision not to know. And they refuse to know. Not only that, they attack others who are spreading information and knowledge, and maybe even violently. So the more so, I guarantee you there are people listening who work for the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, etc. I promise you, at least a handful of those types of individuals are spying on our conversation this evening. So they work for the machine. They must look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, what are they doing? And at the end of the day, will there be a payoff for them? And if so, will it really be what they were promised? Because remember, their masters tell even bigger lies.
Yes, indeed.
Spy on an even greater level than these little FBI, CIA, NSA puppets who scurry around with a little plastic security badge around their neck thinking that they are somebody. They got a pension plan. They have this. They have that. They don't have shit.
No, they don't. No, they don't. And they're in for perhaps even a ruder awakening than most people. But
hell yes, because their masters will be waiting for them in the hour of their death. And this is the point, especially from the Hindu spiritual tradition, that really dark beings who have done others wrong, murdered, spied, stole, tortured, snitched on, backstabbed, etc., skulked around the shadows. They build up a certain energy around their life, and in the hour of their death, when their spiritual essence exits from their physical body, they will find out who their master is, because their master will be waiting for them, and they will get their reward, and they won't be able to get out of it.
Do you have any, excuse me, do you have any insight as to where these other extraterrestrial or other entities lie in this whole scheme of things?
Yeah, some of them, by the way, some of the ETs that are coming here and visiting here are quite benevolent. They're quite highly advanced, not only technologically but spiritually. Others of them are technologically advanced but spiritually debased. I mean, very fallen and dark and wicked. So they span the gamut. And then others are essentially neutral. Some are just here to observe, more or less like social scientists, like anthropologists or sociologists, just here to watch what's going on. But then some of them are very human appearing and very benevolent, almost angelic. You could say almost angelic. In some cases, they're very pure and noble, well-intentioned, peaceful, harmonious, very pleasant to be around. But others of them are so foul that God help you if you fall in their clutches, because they're nasty. And so you find both at the same time. It gets down to this. In working with extraterrestrials, it's like working with any other kind of being, even the so-called man or woman in the street. When you walk down the street in a large city, there are people that you pass on the sidewalk who are killers, who have killed people. And you don't know that. And they won't self-confess because they don't want to be prosecuted for the crime. But I promise you, that's the case, because most murders are never solved. And on the other hand, when you walk down the street, you're also passing people who, unbeknownst to you, have done tremendously noble, generous, and good things during the course of their life, who are really, if you could see their aura, have a beautiful, lovely golden glow about them, because they have lived such pure, good, wonderful, generous, helpful, friendly lives. And so that you'll pass people like that too. So you find the both in human society, and extraterrestrials are no different. You find the good, the bad, and ugly, and everything in between.
And are they interfacing with the machine, do you believe, in either in helping it or?
Yes. Some of them, yes, I think so. And I would speculate that perhaps one or more of these very debased extraterrestrial civilizations may have played a strong role in creating this machine and setting it loose I can't say that because ayahuasca didn't show me who created the machine or why.
Mm-hmm.
It just showed me the machine in action, and some of the ways that it works on this planet. It gave me a sense of its agenda, and its agenda is not pleasant. The machine does not mean well. The machine does not like you, except insofar as it can feed from you, or use you to do its bidding. Otherwise, you are just collateral damage for the machine. And if it destroys you in the process of carrying out its machine agenda, you know what? Too bad. It won't skip a beat.
Well, I have, we're running out of time real fast, Richard, and it usually always happens that way whenever I'm talking to a great guest. And so I have two questions that people have posed that I would like you to give a brief answer to, if you could. Where does the Denver International Airport fit into this underground base scenario? Is it part of this?
It's a minor cog.
Okay.
The major facilities are so much larger, and if it fits in, it would only be as a transition point. You know, like a transportation internodal point, if you will. It is the really serious, heavy-duty, secret underground facilities are elsewhere, including in Colorado, in the Rocky Mountain region. And some of them are quite vast. There are tunnels that sprawl for miles. I've been told of some of them. I don't know how vast the total underground tunnel system is, but there are secret underground tunnels. There's no question. My research points in that direction, and then I've had people from time to time over the years describe portions of some of the tunnels they know about. The thing is, the whole underground labyrinth and network is so large that I doubt that there's even any given single insider who knows about it all. There's certainly some would know more than others at the highest levels, or should we say again at the very lowest levels.
Indeed.
But the Denver airport would have really a minor role. You know, people talk about it a lot, but you know, when the disinformation machine puts something out front, when it's on television, on internet websites, etc., you can assume that the machine doesn't mind if people know about that, because what it's hiding is so much vaster that if people are spending 99% of the time talking about and focusing on the Denver airport, that leaves 1% of the time for paying attention to everything else.
Good point.
So from the machine standpoint, if people spend, they can obsess for the next century about the Denver airport. You know, that's a couple thousand acres.
Yes.
3,000 acres. What's happening in the other, 68 million acres? No one knows because they're not looking.
Very good point. Very good point. One other question was, someone asked about a possible connection between, and I don't know whether you would have any knowledge of this, but someone asked if there was a possible connection between our continued presence in Cuba and the fact that perhaps Atlantis did originate in the Caribbean, or at one time was there, and that the U.S. is maintaining its presence in that area in some relation to Atlantis.
I don't know. The short answer is I don't know.
Okay.
Perhaps, but I have no information whatsoever. My guess would be a more likely explanation is purely for geopolitical and geomilitary strategic reasons, because the Caribbean is within the United States military and political sphere of influence. So for that reason, they want to retain that military base in Cuba, because the business of the United States is war, and the United States has military bases all over the world. They happen to have one in Cuba. It's strategically located. And my guess is that they hold on to it for that reason.
Very good, very good. And one other one was if you are familiar with the Montauk Project at all, and if you are, does that relate to the underground network of tunnels and bases and that sort of thing?
Yeah, the SAGE radar system at Montauk, my research suggests that routinely there was an underground component of that, and people who have researched Montauk have pointed to underground chambers and facilities beneath Montauk, which is consistent with, a 1960s era SAGE radar facility. Whether or not that connects more widely with other tunnels and installations on Long Island or elsewhere in the northeastern quadrant of North America, I don't know. I think it's possible. Mm-hmm. I don't have any specific information in that regard. But certainly what we do know about radar, and we talked about this earlier, is certain frequencies do have psychoactive properties. They interact with human consciousness. So God only knows what all happened at Montauk or at other radar facilities. Mm-hmm. And here again with Montauk, if everyone spends years obsessing about Montauk and the radar facility there, that leaves, check it out, no time to look into what may have happened at other radar facilities or may be happening now.
And that's very true. And, of course, those are excellent points for people who want to look into researching any of these topics more. And that is the fact that, and I try to maintain this approach as well, and that is the idea of not being too focused on any one thing, because it can cause you to lose sight of a lot of other things going on in the periphery, which are equally, if not more important than what you're looking at the present time. And I know it can be rather hard to juggle your mind between a lot of different topics, but it is important sometimes to step out of your comfort zone of what it is that you've been looking at, to look at something else and realize there may be some other connections there that you haven't seen before.
That's right. And an expression that describes this is not being able to see the forest for the trees.
Indeed.
If you persist in peering at only one tree from 5 inches away, you'll never see the forest. In fact, you won't even see all of that one individual tree. You only see that little one part that you're peering intently at for years at a time. So people really do need to have a broader focus, a deeper analysis. And I want to say this whole question of electronic mind control is a huge issue. The agencies like NSA, the military intelligence agencies, Office of Naval Investigation, ONI, AF, OSI, Army Intelligence, the CIA, they're heavily involved in electronic mind control and electronic technologies that manipulate and influence and alter human consciousness. So whatever happened at Montauk is just the tip of the iceberg, because this stuff is ongoing, and it's huge. We just don't know how far it extends.
Well, we're just about out of time here. My guest today was Richard Sauder, author of several books that you can find at Keyhole Publishing. keyholepublishing.com, and you can find his books there, and also you can find his blog at eventhorizonchronicle.blogspot.com. Been very happy to have him for 2 hours today. Richard, do you have a final word that you'd like to leave people with?
Yes, the time for the big upwising of the human race is here. UPWISING. If we don't upwise, we are toast, because the trajectory of events on this planet is so troubling and so dark and so enslaving in this instant that our only way out is in. We simply must raise our consciousness. Every single person who can raise his or her consciousness and become more aware, more spiritually aware, more mentally aware, is to the good. We need every last man and woman now. The frontier, the battlefield lies within. And either we rise to the occasion and become wiser and much more savvy and prevail as a race and reclaim not only our destiny as human beings, but take charge once again of the destiny of the planet Earth, or we don't. I think we can do it. Now is the time. This year, 2012, 2013, not 20 years from now, not 10 years from now, not even 5 years from now. Right now is very important.
How about this one, Richard? Get wise or face demise.
That's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Richard, for being with us today. Thank you all for listening to the Stench of Truth Radio here on Inception Radio Network.com every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Join me again next week for 2 hours of interesting discussion with another fascinating guest. Thanks again to Richard. Check him out at eventhorizonblogspot.com and eventhorizonchronicles.blogspot.com.
No, it's singular.
Yes, horizonchronicles.blogspot.com and at keyholepublishing.com. And I really enjoyed your time today, Richard. Thank you again for joining us, and join us again next week for another show. So long.
Thank you.
She's been in everyone, in everywhere. I've deduced we're wrong for beating the prodigal one.